when you're saving some money in the process, guess what? Now you don't have an excuse anymore not to do blood work. Yeah, now you have the money available. You can't say, it's too expensive. Vigorous Steve here. I'm going to teach you guys how to coach yourself, because I don't think I'll accept any new coaching clients for the immediate future. As of now, I still have over 10 coaching clients which are loyal, and I doubt that they're going to go away anytime soon. Ideally, I want to reduce it to 5 coaching clients at maximum, but that might still take another couple of months. So when I'm ready to accept new coaching clients, I will announce that on Instagram or on my website or make an announcement here on YouTube. But for now, I'm not in the position to accept new clients. So I better be a good sport about it and transfer my knowledge to you guys so you have the information required to coach yourself. Again, it's not rocket science. You just have to be patient and make the correct adjustments whenever your body or progression stalls. Now, if you still need a coach, I'll link a couple of my favorite coaches down below, friends of mine, which I can highly recommend. So if you need some personal advice, right, some hands-on experience from an experienced coach, consider reaching out to some of my friends. Being Aaron Burke, a former client of mine and a good friend still. He lives in China, so if you're in this part of the world, that's very convenient regarding communication because you're in similar time zones. Or consider David Johnston, a former co-host of the Geared Up podcasts for the guys who've been around for a couple of years now. Also a very good and experienced coach. Consider reaching out to him. Or another friend of mine and a fellow YouTuber as well, Scott Mc.Nally, the host of the Think Big Bodybuilding media channel. Very experienced competitor, has been teaching plenty of competitors in the United States. Also a very good and reliable coach if you're interested in competing. If you're a woman and you're looking for a solid coach that is not going to ruin your femininity, consider Dell living in New Zealand or Branden Yang living in Singapore. I'm familiar with both of their approaches, and it's something I can always get behind. And all of these guys I know personally, I consider them my friends. They're highly experienced. So if you're still looking for coaching because you need some hands-on experience and proper guidance, consider reaching out to some of my friends who've got years or even decades worth of experience coaching anywhere from bikini athletes to high-level bodybuilders and everything in between, obviously. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes and the spicy details of this video, please like the video, leave a comment for the algorithm, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Let's get started with the progress pictures. Those are essential if you want to coach yourself, whether that's during the off-season or a contest prep cutting phase. Every week, you're going to take progress pictures because it doesn't matter how many times you stand in front of the mirror flexing, especially if you stand in front of the mirror flexing all the freaking time. It's very difficult to assess progress because progress is gradual and slow. But over the course of 7 days or a month, for example, when you compare the progress pictures from month to month, there should be a clear and noticeable difference. So, right, especially if you're training in a gym in a tank top like this, you're always pumped and you always look kind of good, it's a little bit difficult to assess progress. So take your progress on the morning of your intended cheat meal or refeed day, whatever day of the week that you're going out and have a little bit more luxurious food or a higher caloric intake for that day to reset and restore metabolism for the next couple of days. Take your progress on the morning of that scheduled refeed because it's generally the moment of the week where you're most flat. Right? Most of the glycogen stores have already been depleted unless you're in the off season. And even during the off season, you should still take your weekly progress pictures just to make sure you're not getting too fat, right? You're in a caloric surplus to make all these sweet gains, but unfortunately, you're going to accumulate some body fat in that process. So during cutting phase or contest prep, you're keeping track of the progress that you're making regarding the reduction of body fat, and hopefully you can improve some body parts at the same time, right? You grow into the show or you grow while you're getting lean if performance-enhancing drugs are involved. And during the off-season, you take your weekly progress pictures just to make sure you're not getting too fat. And those weaker body parts are growing faster than the stronger body parts, which don't really need special adjustments during this off-season because they're already freaking sweet. So, weekly progress pictures, but you don't get to look at it. You don't get to look at it after you take them because you're going to fuck with your mind, dude. It happens to me every week. I take my progress pictures Sunday morning, and I immediately want to look at them. But after 20 years in this bodybuilding space and coaching myself for many years, I know that as soon as I look at those pictures, I'm going to be disappointed because the camera generally doesn't capture the same image and reflection that you see in the mirror. So especially if you're posing in front of the mirror and you let the camera run wild, right? Take a picture every second or 2 seconds so you can just pose away and compare the best shots, and you delete and discard all the rest. When you're looking in the mirror, you get an accurate representation of what you're looking like, right? Unless you're posing in front of the funny mirror, but I can't really recommend that either. And then you look at the pictures on your phone or on your digital camera, and they don't look exactly the same as what you saw in the mirror. Most of the times you're just highly disappointed. Like, man, I look good here, but I don't look good there on this digital image. So instead of preventing that from happening and getting a little bit disappointed and that you're still not there, still not lean enough, still not big enough, still not full enough, etc., to the point you get hard on yourself in your Saturday or Sunday morning and afternoon and evening is kind of ruined, you let those pictures sit. Just let them sit for 24 hours, right? Your refeed is already scheduled. You know exactly what to do, what to eat, how much insulin to take with each meal, if that's right, your thing. And otherwise, you know which pizza to eat or which Ben & Jerry's or whatever, right? You've got your Sunday scheduled. You can already assess your Sunday refeed or Saturday refeed based on your strength progression or strength decline during the week leading up to this refeed. Then Monday morning, the day after you took your pictures, first you look in the mirror, you see that you're full but watery as fuck. I guess that's part of a normal refeed process unless you're really, really lean at the later stages of a contest prep or cutting phase. And then it doesn't really happen anymore because you're also more restrictive in what you're eating during a refeed. But generally speaking, the day after your refeed, you kind of look like ass. Let's be honest, you look full, but you look glazed over, right? Like the Michelin Man. And then you look at those pictures that you took the day prior and you look oh so good. You look so lean and so full and so hard and so dense, right? Because now you've conditioned yourself with this reflection that you saw in the mirror being completely glazed over. And then you look at the pictures and you feel good about yourself. Now you can make some adjustments for your diet or your training or performance enhancing drug protocol for the continuous next for a couple of days until you have to take your progress pictures again, right? So don't look at them right away. Give yourself 24 hours, maybe even 48 hours, and then compare what you see in the mirror after a refeed to the pictures you took when you were your leanest, your driest, and obviously you're most depleted if you took those pictures during a cutting phase or contest prep. The second thing you need to keep track of is your morning body weight. You track that every day. It's another metric to track progress. Check your morning body weight every day, but don't compare it from day to day. You compare it week to week. You compare your morning weight before the refeed and after the refeed, because there should be maybe a 5% body weight increase discrepancy there. Because normally, generally speaking, even during the off-season or contest prep cutting phase, your body weight generally comes down over the week, especially during the off-season when you can eat a little bit more freely during your cheat meal. But there's a little bit of a caveat there. When you're in the off-season, you're eating a ton of food already, generally speaking. For your cheat meal, you're not really that hungry. So you see with most guys is that when they go out, they eat like a bird compared to doing a cutting phase or contest prep, where they have so much hunger leading into that refeed or cheat meal that they can have 2 hamburgers at that time and only 1 hamburger, for example, during the off-season. So compare your body weight before the refeed or cheat meal and the day after on a week-to-week basis to assess progress regarding the accumulation of body weight or the losing of body weight. And generally speaking, a safe parameter to go by is just 1 pound, half a kilo of body weight, whether you're cutting or trying to increase your size and strength. 1 pound is more than enough. That's a sustainable practice. There's not so much metabolic adaptation if you only lose 1 pound of body weight. Now, of course, if you're a 100-pound girl, 1 pound of body weight is a substantially higher percentage than dropping 1 pound as a 250 or 300-pound male bodybuilder. So it's a little bit difficult. So it might be better to express that in a percentage, losing or gaining between 0.5 to 1% of your body weight. So if you're 100 kilos, you gain between half a kilo to a kilo per week. During the off-season, 1 kilo might already be too much, right? You can drop a kilo of weight, because you're not only losing fat on the scale, but also a little bit of water retention as a result of that. And of course, glycogen stores. And well, let's be honest, weight gain is not going to be gradual. In the beginning, you'll lose way more, and then it kind of tapers off. And then it might come up as you add in particular performance-enhancing drugs, which are going to accumulate more muscle mass. So it's just another metric to keep track of your progress. And with all the metrics that we'll discuss in this video, you should be able to make very accurate decisions on how to keep progressing. So arbitrary number, 0.5 to 1% of your body weight, either up or down, based on your morning weight of the Sunday refeed or the Saturday refeed, whenever you refeed, and the day after. And try not to gain more than anywhere between 2 to 4% of your body weight after a refeed. Again, if you're 100 kilos and you refeed yourself up to 105 kilos, that's a pretty big jump. Right? So ideally you gain maybe 2 or 3 kilos. That's 2 or 3%. So, right, keep track of all of those metrics. You'll have to figure out what works for you, obviously. But the key here is to measure your weight after you've gone to the bathroom. After you've gone to the bathroom, especially during the off season, when you're eating a ton of food, it could be a difference of a kilo and a half. Right? You're not going to add that 1.5 kilos on top of your morning weight and then assume that's all muscle mass. No, that's literally crap. And you can deduct that kilo or kilo and a half easily to keep better track of your weight progression over the next couple of weeks or months that you're doing the off season. And make sure that you keep track of your body fat levels, whether you're undergoing a cutting phase or an off season phase. Keep track of your body fat. Now you can make a very informed decision and assessment based on your progress pictures, right? That you take week by week. Am I getting leaner or am I getting fatter? But there comes a little bit of a point where it's very difficult to assess, right? Maybe the twilight zone, you can call it like that, or the Bermuda's Triangle, where the difference between 4% body fat and 6% body fat or 7% body fat is not really noticeable. And from 15 to 17 to 20% body fat is not very noticeable in the pictures as well. So you need to use calipers. Now you can do a 3-point test, a 4-point, 7-point, 9-point test to assess your body fat levels using the calipers. Ideally, you do the 9-point test, right? Get as many measurements as possible. Again, on the morning of your refeed or cheat meal, right, where you're generally your leanest, your driest. You do a 9-point test and you just add up the totals. You don't need to go through these fancy calculations to really put a number on your body fat percentage. You just add up the amount of millimeters that the calipers are measuring. And if that's 40 millimeters or 100 millimeters, right, you just keep track of that. And this way you know if you're still losing fat gradually or if you're gaining fat gradually or maybe too rapidly for the amount of muscle mass that you're putting on. Now, if this is too cumbersome, I completely understand. You already took your progress pictures, you took your morning weight, you put that on the calendar. Hey, you want to get into your refeed, right? You're hungry, you're starving, you're ready to reload some glycogen and start sweating profusely from the afternoon and onwards. So you don't want to do this 9-side skinfold test with the calipers and mark that all down as well. Just use 2 fingers and pinch your lower back. Keep track of that. That's probably the easiest way. I've been using my lower back skinfold testing method with my 2 fingers, and I can gauge pretty well if it's getting less or more. If you're getting leaner, the lower back is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and more watery and more watery and more watery to the point it almost is representative of an uncooked egg. That's how jiggly it turns out to be. It looks highly uncomfortable, not very cosmetically pleasing, especially when it starts folding over your pants. And that's a little bit of the twilight zone. And then when you continue with your diet, the lower back starts to pull in. And then when you reach that point where your lower back is thinner in the evening compared to the morning, that's when you're ready to get on stage. Now, for women, you can use that with the adductor area or the glute ham tie-in. That's usually the fattest place on a woman's body, unless you're using Novadex to really get the shred train going in that area. Right? You just use one area to pinch with your fingers, and you can easily gouge from week to week if it's getting smaller and more watery, and then starts to retract and pull in to the point it looks like this, albeit that you're miserable, getting your skin uniformly this lean all of your body, especially your lower back or on the adductors if you're a woman. You'll be miserable, so you might want to right? Quit while you're ahead and just settle for 7%, 8% body fat. But you can make a very good assessments just using your 2 fingers. And right, as long as you do that consistently and just track if the body fat is going down or not turning into this hard fat that first is jelly, right? And then it gets bigger and then you grab it and you can't even pinch it anymore. That's how hard it is. When that happens, congratulations. It's time for a mini diet. You need to take a step back because now you're in obese territory, right? At least if you're a bodybuilder, beyond 15% would already be considered obese. Right? At least your body mass index would represent that as well. So that's a very easy metric to assess your body fat levels besides the calipers and the progress pictures. And also keep track of your fasting glucose levels. Now, it doesn't have to be before each meal, which is certainly required when you start dabbling with insulin. So you have a baseline of your highest readings and lowest readings during the day, especially when you start thinking about adding in the long-acting insulin, like Lantus, for example. You need to have a fundamental understanding of your blood glucose levels before you add in the insulin to see your lowest readings during the day, whether that's fasted, before meals, post-workout, before bed. And then if you decide to add in a long-acting insulin, at least you have a baseline reading so you can manipulate the meals, increase the carbohydrates with particular meals to make sure that all of your glucose readings stay within healthy ranges. And certainly don't drop below 70 milligrams per deciliter at certain points during the day. Now, depending on which drugs you're going to use, right, assuming that most of you guys are enhanced, and for the drug-free guys, you only need to test your fasted glucose levels during the off-season so you know that you're still insulin sensitive. And again, if you're waking up, you're drug-free, right? You don't take anything besides maybe a little bit of berberine before bed. And you're still waking up with a fasted glucose over 100 milligrams per deciliter. You do your fasted cardio and it barely drops. You are losing insulin sensitivity. And it doesn't matter if you're taking the berberine or some over-the-counter glucose disposal agents. It's time to do a little bit of a mini diet and restore your insulin sensitivity. But when you're enhanced and you start dabbling with compounds that alter your blood glucose levels, whether that's the MK677 or the growth hormone at multiple injections per day, raising your blood glucose, or the trenbolone, or the insulin, or the D-peptidyl peptidase 4 inhibitors, lowering your blood glucose levels. Once you get a little bit more advanced and start experimenting with particular PEDs which alter serum glucose levels, it's very important to keep track of your glucose concentrations, especially when you wake up. Because not only does that indicate if you're losing insulin sensitivity, it also shows if you're getting into an overtrained state, for example, or if you're getting into a state where you're dosing your insulin, long-acting insulin too high. Right? It's very important to keep track of that at more advanced stages, or at least during the off-season, so you can make the appropriate adjustments. And yes, it's going to be every single day of the week. You check your fasted glucose levels every single day of the week, so you can see what's happening internally, right? That's the easiest test you can do at home. You don't need to go in for blood work, which we'll discuss a little bit later in this video, obviously. That's one of the few tests where you can actually have fundamental insight into your own health, into your own serum concentrations. Simply check your fasting blood glucose every day in the morning, right after you go to the bathroom and you've took your morning fasted weight. You write this in the calendar, and then you see your progression over time, because a hemoglobin A1C is a great metric to check your serum glucose levels as an average over 3 months. But how many times are you going in for your hemoglobin A1C? Once every 3 months, obviously, because you want to get the average, right? Or how many times are you going to go to the hospital and do a fasted insulin check or a glucose tolerance test, right? All these things are important to do once in a while, especially at more advanced bodybuilding. But if you're not advanced, or you don't want to go in so often, fasted glucose, get a monitor. They're like $30 on Amazon. Super cheap. It's not an excuse not to do it. Just keep track of it so you can make the appropriate adjustments and decisions going forward. Now, again, if you're waking up with high fasted glucose levels, discounting the performance-enhancing drugs involved that might cause it, or being in an overtrained state, right, which might also cause your fasted glucose levels to come up and stay elevated, right? Just an indication of stress. So if you wake up and you're stressed, you're like, oh, I got to do a million different things, but I don't have enough time today. That might be an indication that your stress levels are too high also. Maybe ashwagandha root extract or phosphatidylserine can cure you to a certain extent. But it's probably a better indication that it's just time to take a week off. And you might as well schedule a mini diet at that time. You cut your carbs in half. You add in 500 milligrams of metformin. Right? You obviously take the long-acting insulin out because you don't want to have long-acting insulin active while you're taking metformin before bed. I mean, you're kind of asking for it to wake up in a puddle of sweat, confused, not knowing what's up or down, and your tongues are tingling if you wake up at all, right? So please, a little bit of caution is advised in that scenario. If you're going to do a mini diet, you take all the PEDs out that are supposedly there to make you super anabolic, especially during the off season. You cut your carbs in half. You keep your protein exactly the same. You don't need to compensate, right? You're probably going to deload at the same time. Also, 500 milligrams of metformin before bed, or you do a fast for a week. That's right, a faster approach. You fast to get the job done faster. You certainly get more insulin sensitive while fasting and after the fast. So whatever direction you choose, right, your blood glucose levels will slowly drop down over the course of a couple days or 2 weeks. And then you wake up with beautiful 68, 70, 75 milligrams per deciliter in the morning again. And that's your cue to keep trucking with this off season, or continue with your previous performance-enhancing drug protocol. Keep track of your sleep. There's several different methods to do that, but I already made a video about sleep apnea. I would highly advise you to give that a watch, which is basically the end stage of having poor sleep quality. You can watch that video here. So whether you're buying some sort of watch or a ring, or use an application on your iPhone or Android phone, there's many different ways to check and track your sleep quality. And whatever method you prefer is the method you're going to incorporate. Just stay consistent with that. See how many hours of minutes of deep sleep you're getting, how long you're sleeping, what the quality of your sleep is. And that will play into your recovery capability, but also your cognition during the day. Now, when you're using particular performance-enhancing drugs like growth hormone, for example, and you're training your socks off during the off-season, you're going to need more sleep. So it's important to keep track of that to see if your sleep quality and sleep duration is not going to get less while you're transitioning into a cutting phase. The training intensity and the performance-enhancing drugs involved, and when you're a little bit higher body weight, even when you're doing fasted cardio, get a little bit sleepy, get a little bit tired, right? A little bit less cognitive during the day. So you might need 8, 9, 9.5 hours of sleep. And whatever that is during the off season, if you're changing pharmacology during a contest prep, you just want to make sure that at least the quality of your sleep remains intact. And especially when you start dabbling with the trembolones and the stimulants and whatever else to get the job done and get you as shredded as possible. Understand that particular PEDs and particular phases that you're in is going to impair or improve sleep quality. And just try to find a bliss point where your sleep quality is good and long enough for you to recover, but not so long to the point you're losing hours out of the day, or compensating poor sleep quality with a long sleep duration, right? And one of these watches or rings or applications will give you some good insights into your sleep hygiene, so to say. Keep track on how much money you're spending on your bodybuilding or fitness aspirations, because it's very easy to fall into this lifestyle and just throw all your money at it. But a lot of things that we do or use or incorporate might not be worth it. Right? So particular supplements might not be worth it, or particular training accessories or performance-enhancing drugs, right? And it's okay to experiment with each, see if they have a beneficial effect, but you always have to look into each expense separately to see if they're contributing noticeably or only marginally. And if it's a marginal benefit, right, throw a couple supplements or PEDs or lifting gear out. Because that way you don't bankrupt yourself. You only spend money on the things that are known to work. And whatever money you save in this process, right? I made several videos about this, about how to save money when you're a bodybuilder. You can watch that here. When you're saving some money in the process, guess what? Now you don't have an excuse anymore not to do blood work. Yeah, now you have the money available. You can't say, it's too expensive. Yeah, the last excuse that you have is that you're afraid of blood or needles, or you don't want to know the results, then, well, you're probably not on this YouTube channel. People on this YouTube channel would like to know the results of their blood work. So you have some money set aside for blood work. Ideally every month, dude. Just do it every month. Just go in every month. If you want to do advanced bodybuilding, you do your blood work every month, 12 times out of the year. You probably think I'm crazy, but hey, I'm still alive, right? And even with all of my mistakes, experimenting with performance-enhancing drugs, I'm still alive, and my blood work and my organ imaging and et cetera, is all pretty damn decent, all things considering. So I would highly advise you to do the same thing. You don't have to do the full blood work panel every single month, right? You check your lipids and your estradiol every month. For example, you can check your hemoglobin A1C every 3 months. You can check your hematocrit and red blood cell counts also every 3 months, or maybe even 4 months, depending on which drugs you're using. So if you're only on TRT, for example, every 3 months is usually enough, unless you have a genetic predisposition to really shoot up the red blood cell production when you're using low with supraphysiological dosages. And again, that's all individual response. And the only way to know, by doing the freaking blood work, man. How many heart attacks is it going to take for you to do your blood work every month? Right? I hate to say it like this, but for fuck's sake, just go do it. Set some money aside to do your blood work. And don't start bitching about the medical system. There's always a way. You just have to get a little bit more creative and figure out a way to do blood work as frequent as possible. And if that means you have to travel for half a day to another state, or do blood work by post, for example, there's always a way. You just have to get a little bit more resourceful. And again, that's what you signed up for. You didn't only sign up for all this phenomenal muscle mass and all the accolades that you look so shredded and six-pack and all the blowjobs that come along with it. You also signed up for the blood work and the health screening and all the things that you need to put in place so you can enjoy a beautiful life when you're done with this shit. So again, depending on what you're using, depending on the markers that you're testing, you might need to check particular markers every month. You might need to check them every 3 months, every 6 months, right? Cancer markers you can check every year. If you're using growth hormone or compounds which are known to increase growth potential in the body, the growth factor, so to say, the IGF-1, or if you're dabbling with EPO at an advanced level, right? Check your cancer markers every year. Do maybe an MRI or CT scan every 5 years. Right? And as long as you're staying on top of your lipid levels, your systemic inflammation, you're avoiding all the things that I talked about many times on this YouTube channel, right? Then at least you know you're putting everything into place to prevent cardiovascular disease or coronary artery disease from manifesting. And then the CT scan and the MRI is just a formality, so you can pat yourself on the back and say that you did everything right, or at least that right, your fuck-ups didn't accumulate to the point you got into a health condition. Right, so that's regarding the health screen that you need to put in place. Right, you can easily do that yourself. And if you have no idea how to interpret your blood work results, well, I offer consultations for that, and many other people do. So there's always a way to get a second opinion, or have an expert in the bodybuilding community look at it, who can look at it through the eyes of an athlete themselves, or having experimented with particular performance-enhancing drugs and know how they affect your blood work and which additional testing you need to do, right? Whereas your primary healthcare provider probably says that you're stupid and that you're going to die, and right, all the things you don't want to hear. So there's always an alternative to get your advice somewhere else from people who live through this shit themselves. Okay, leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for the most comprehensive guides to bodybuilding pharmacology so you can coach yourself using bioidentical hormones, those ebooks are on my website, vigoroussteve.com/shop. Direct link down below in the description section. Consultation is always available, right? If you need some hands-on experience from yours truly, you can find the rates in the consultation section. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at VigorousSteve. A frontal bicep for the Vigorous crew. Just be patient. At one point, you can get cannons like these as well. But it will take some time, right? A little bit of trial and error, or a little bit of assessing the situation on a week-to-week basis. And then before you know it, you have a pretty nice physique and the expertise to transfer that to somebody else. You've coached yourself, and now you can make money coaching somebody else also. Check out my link tree with links and discount codes for all of the affiliates and sponsors that I'm associated with and believe in. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.